Hey there, Northeast Ohio homeowners. You can imagine with over 20 years in the real estate business, I've seen a few things. In fact, I've seen the good, the bad, and the downright creepy. Oof, gives me chills just thinking about it sometimes. So in this fourth video in our series, How to Prepare Your Northeast Ohio Home for Sale, we're going to be talking about depersonalizing the home. So let's get started. Welcome back, Northeast Ohio homeowners, to the video series I created for you on how to prepare your home for sale. I'm Christine Pappas, your local realtor and host for the series. If you're making your way through these videos, I suspect it's because you want to do everything you can to put your best house forward. So in this fourth video, we're going to be talking about depersonalizing your home. You may have heard of the saying, how you live in your home and how you live in your home to sell it are two different things. And that statement is truth. So, when you decorated your house, you did so with your own personal style and taste. Yet when you decorate your house to sell it, you do so with your future buyer in mind. Decorating to sell consists of three different things. The first is staging, and staging sets the mood for the house. The second is decluttering. And you declutter so that the buyer can get a sense that there's a place for their belongings. They want to be able to see that their 10 winter coats has a spot in the front closet, or their 100 pair of shoes has a place in the primary closet in the bedroom. And when you depersonalize so that the buyer can imagine themselves in the home. They want to be able to see that they can create their own home story, or where their traditions can take root, or where they're going to be able to create their own memories. So when you're getting ready to sell, you want to decorate for sale, which is staging, setting the mood, decluttering to allow the buyer to see that their belongings can fit in the house, and then depersonalizing so that they can see that they belong in the house themselves. So today I wanted to share a couple of stories with you about how when a home is not depersonalized, how that can actually turn a buyer completely off and in fact send them running for the front door. So this first one is a bit creepy. It might even give you a bad dream tonight, but I gotta tell it anyway. So picture this. I was showing a luxury listing, and this was a huge house. We're making our way through the first floor, which was really taking quite a bit of time because the house was so large. We get to the great room, and that's when it happened. In fact, we could not even believe what our eyes were seeing. It was definitely one of the creepiest moments of my real estate career. In the great room, the seller had a life-size bird cage with a life-sized female mannequin in it, dressed like she came out of a horror film. I mean, it was creepy, it was scary, and it was just felt like it was just so inappropriate. And no, it was not Halloween. It was their version of art. But we felt very uncomfortable, and the buyer felt very uncomfortable. In fact, they did not want to see any more of the house because they were so creeped out. They basically looked at me and said, well, we've had enough, we're out of here, and they made a beeline for the door. There was no talking them into seeing any other part of the house. They just couldn't get past it. It just gave them the creeps. I did, in fact, follow that house to see if it ever sold, and as far as I could tell, it did not sell. Another interesting story was I'm showing this couple this darling house. We pull up, and the house is as cute as a button. However, when we walked inside, we could see that the sellers had an ode to the tropical islands, and everything was covered in tropical motif. In fact, not only was the house decked out from top to bottom, wall to wall, There were so many island motif items that we could not even walk through the house. We really couldn't make our way through the rainforest of plastic palm trees and life-size jungle animals. Yes, I mean, these were life-sized items, life-size palm trees, life-size tigers and leopards and monkeys hanging. They had from the ceilings, they had mood lighting, you know, like those little twinkle lights, and they had the thatch roof on the ceiling. I mean, it was 100% decked out in island motif. Well, we actually ended up spending some time in there, but it was not because the buyer wanted to buy the house. It was because they were just so enthralled with how this house was decorated that they just were, you know, taken in and marveled over all of the stuff that they had and how, you know, how the buyer had it decorated. But the buyers were not going to consider the house. In fact, because of all of the stuff that was in there with their decorations, they couldn't even see past it. They couldn't even get a sense of how big the living room was or how big the master bedroom would be, or, you know, let alone figure out if any of their stuff could fit into the house. So unfortunately, my buyers had to pass on that house. And unfortunately for the seller too, that they didn't, you know, think about getting rid of all of that stuff so that a buyer could actually see what their house might offer them. And then I'm going to tell you one more here before we go on. This one is both disgusting and creepy at the same time. So while showing another client, we entered into the house, and this house was probably on the borderline hoarding because we really could barely walk through the house. It was kind of like, you know, like when you're trying to make your way through like large piles of snow and you're just kind of like putting one foot in front of the other, just kind of like in a straight line. That's how we were having to get through the rooms of the house. And then on top of that, they had one bedroom that was dedicated to several birds. It was a complete bird room. And there were several birds in there, and they had full reign of this bedroom. Ugh. I mean, I just want to tell you, it was yuck. If that was not bad enough, on the beds, they had used pads where their cats defecated. Yes, yuck, yuck. I mean, it was so disgusting. The smell was so, so bad. Between the birds and the smell of the cat feces and urine, it was really bad. And then if all of that wasn't bad enough, there was an entire collection of old dolls. You know, the kind where those creepy eyes, where they just kind of follow you wherever you go. Yeah, you know, that kind. So we had squawking birds with free reign all over the room, so filth. The smell from the defecating of the cats, and then the eerie eyes. If I cannot even emphasize how fast we could not get out of that house. I mean, we just couldn't get out of that house fast enough. It was just so gross. In fact, the buyers texted me for days on end, and every time we went to go see another house, that was the topic of conversation. It was really bad. Okay, I know that these stories were extreme, but I wanted to tell you these real life extreme stories because I think the term depersonalizing gets thrown around so much and also kind of minimized to just removing pictures of themselves or the family. But as you can see from my real life stories, there's much more to the picture than just removing family photos. It's more about removing the personal taste of a home so that a buyer can come in and see themselves in that home. That is the purpose of depersonalizing the house. So more of a common types of things that we see when we walk into a house that can be distracting for a buyer is, say you love to hunt and you may have decided to take those hunting treasures and turn them into taxidermy trophies. Those might be off-putting to a buyer. Or you might love all things Christmas and have a complete display of Christmas items year-round. Or you might have antiques or other small little figurine collections. And those are the types of things that could be distracting to a buyer because they stop and look instead of looking at the house or focusing on the house. They're really looking at your items. Some other things that can be distracting is hip and stylish furniture. You know, sometimes if it's not a traditional set or even something that's really uncommon, a buyer could get very distracted with that. Another thing that could be very distracting is extremely bold colors. So, for instance, we've been into houses sometimes and their bedrooms are painted in black or an extremely dark color, and buyers have a tendency to get past that. So when you're going to decorate to sell, we really want you to remove all of your personal style. And that might be a little disappointing to you, but keep in mind that you're not going to be living in there. You're planning on moving on, and you want to do everything that you can to basically neutralize the house so that your potential buyer can go in there and imagine themselves in there. And you want to take away any distraction so that your buyer can focus on that house, on how their own furniture is going to fit in there, how their belongings will fit in there, and how all of their items will look inside of the house. So, and keep in mind, if they cannot overlook your personal flair, they will be less likely to put in a strong offer, and sometimes really not even an offer at all if they feel like something that's going on in the house is going to be too much of a headache for them to overcome. Like a lot of strong colors on the walls, if they feel like, oh my gosh, I got to go in and paint everything, or if there's a lot of wallpaper and they feel like they have to go in and tear it all down or something like that, they might feel like, oh, you know, it's not something that they really want to take on. Or if they see another house that could be similar to yours in layout and even in price, but that other house they don't have to do as much in, they might choose that other house because they feel like they won't have to do as much work. So it's really in your best interest to depersonalize and neutralize and make the house as appealing to a potential buyer so that they will feel compelled to make you a fantastic offer. And if you happen to have missed my previous video on decluttering, you can watch it right here. If you really like this video, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification button so that you'll be reminded whenever the latest and greatest video comes out. Thanks again for watching, and kudos to you for putting your best house forward. Until the next video, you have yourself a great day. Bye.